you ever wondered why some people's lives suddenly change, their problems dissolve, and their hearts find peace while others struggle for years without relief? There's a secret moment when the gates of heaven are open, when angels descend, and the mercy of Allah floods the earth. 4:30 a.m., the time of divine invitation. While most of the world is asleep, the chosen few rise, whispering words that move mountains and open doors they once thought were sealed forever. You might think, but I'm too tired at that hour. And that's exactly why it's powerful, because sacrifice attracts divine attention. Imagine Allah, the King of all kings, calling out, "Is there anyone asking so I may give?" And your name could be the one written among those who responded. What if the only thing standing between you and your miracle is a few sincere words before dawn? Let's be honest, how many of us scroll through our phones at that hour, chasing notifications from people when the Lord of the universe is waiting for ours? Stay with me, because by the end of this, you'll discover exactly what to say in that sacred moment. And once you do, you'll never look at 4:30 a.m. the same way again. The last part of the night is the most powerful time for answered prayers, because it is a sacred window of divine mercy, a moment when the veils between the Creator and his servant are lifted, and hearts find a direct connection to the one who never turns away. It is in these quiet hours, when the world sleeps and distractions fade, that the soul awakens to its purest state of humility and need. This time, known as the last third of the night, is not just another portion of the day. It is the chosen time when Allah himself descends to the lowest heaven and calls out to his creation, "Is there anyone asking that I may give? Is there anyone seeking forgiveness that I may forgive?" Imagine the Lord of all existence calling out in love and mercy, offering what no king, no leader, no human being could ever offer. Those who rise in this time, even if only for a few minutes, step into an atmosphere charged with divine acceptance and spiritual energy. The power of this time lies in its silence. The world is asleep, the noise of life is gone, and only the whispers of those who remember Allah fill the air. It is in this stillness that the believer's voice carries weight, because sincerity shines brightest when it is unseen by others. During the day, our prayers may be distracted, hurried, and clouded by worldly thoughts. But in the last part of the night, the heart softens, tears flow easily, and the soul confesses what it cannot during the light of day. This is the time when dua transforms from words into worship, from requests into surrender. It is when the believer's weakness meets Allah's power, and the impossible becomes possible. The most powerful prayers are not those spoken loudly, but those whispered with trembling hearts in the darkness before dawn. 30 a.m., when darkness covers the earth, light fills the hearts of those who rise. Their duas are different. They are raw, honest, and free from pretense. They do not recite out of habit. They pour out their pain, hopes, and fears before the one who already knows but loves to hear. Some weep for forgiveness, some ask for healing, some beg for guidance, some thank Allah for blessings they feel unworthy of. It is at that time that faith is renewed, because every sincere dua strengthens the bond between the servant and the Creator. The believer feels seen, heard, and valued, even when the world has ignored them. There is a tranquility in that hour that cannot be found in the noise of daytime worship, a sweetness that nourishes the heart long after dawn breaks. This time also has immense transformative power. Those who make it a habit to pray and make dua in the last part of the night often find their lives changing in ways they could never have imagined. Problems that seemed unending suddenly ease, doors that were sealed tight begin to open, and hearts burdened with grief find peace. It is not always the circumstances that change immediately, but the person themselves. Their patience deepens, their hope strengthens, and their outlook shifts. They begin to understand that Allah's plan is always unfolding perfectly, even when unseen. This deep trust, born in the stillness of the night, becomes a shield during the storms of the day. The believer who connects with Allah at that time carries a sense of calm that others can feel but cannot explain, because they have tasted the sweetness of divine companionship. The last part of the night is also a time when sins are forgiven and hearts are purified. Each tear shed in sincere repentance erases layers of darkness that accumulated through heedlessness and mistakes. Allah loves to forgive, and He especially loves those who seek forgiveness when no one else is watching. This is why so many scholars and righteous people emphasized Qiyam al-Layl. It was their secret weapon for success, peace, and closeness to Allah. They knew that true strength is built not in public achievements, but in private moments of worship. A believer who cries before Allah in solitude becomes unshakable in public, because they draw power from the source of all strength. Every act of worship at that hour multiplies in reward, and every dua made in sincerity ascends swiftly, carried by angels of mercy. There is also a beauty in the consistency of this worship. The believer who makes dua regularly at this time builds a habit of reliance on Allah rather than on creation. They learn to seek solutions not through anxiety but through connection. Each morning they rise before dawn, their heart becomes lighter, their mind clearer, and their life more aligned with divine purpose. This is why many who experience hardship are advised to wake at this time, for it is the spiritual medicine that heals what doctors and counselors cannot reach. It restores hope to the hopeless and gives clarity to the confused. The believer learns that peace is not found in wealth, people, or success. It is found in the quiet conversation between a servant and his Lord in the last part of the night. Even nature itself seems to participate in this sacred hour. The air feels purer, the stars shine brighter, and a silence descends that invites reflection. It is as if the entire universe pauses to witness the few who remember their Creator while others rest. These moments are fleeting but powerful, and those who seize them find blessing spilling into every part of their day. Their hearts remain soft, their actions sincere, and their outlook hopeful. They begin to see Allah's mercy in everything, from the smallest blessing to the greatest challenge. The last part of the night becomes their sanctuary, the place where they recharge their souls and seek guidance for the coming day. The dua before dawn draws Allah's special mercy and attention because it is made at the most sacred time of the night, when hearts are purest, distractions are fewest, and the soul stands vulnerable before its Creator. At that hour, the world is still asleep, yet the heavens are alive with divine compassion. Allah, in His unmatched mercy, descends to the lowest heaven during this time and calls out to His creation, asking, "Is there anyone asking that I may give? Is there anyone seeking forgiveness that I may forgive?" This is not a distant echo, it is an open invitation from the Most Merciful Himself. The believer who responds with a heart full of sincerity becomes the recipient of divine attention, unlike any other moment of the day. The dua whispered before dawn carries a different weight, a different energy, because it comes from a place of effort, sacrifice, and yearning. At that hour, when eyes are heavy and sleep tempts the soul, those who wake to raise their hands in prayer are distinguished by their love for Allah. It takes strength to rise from a warm bed, wash in cold water, and face the stillness of the night. But that effort, that discomfort, is what makes the dua sincere. It is the act of a believer saying, "Ya Allah, you are more important to me than my comfort, my rest, my world." And Allah, who knows every intention and sees every struggle, responds to that devotion with mercy that cannot be measured. The dua made before dawn is not rushed, not distracted by worldly noise. It is intimate, raw, and honest. It often carries tears, regrets, hopes, and secrets that the believer cannot share with anyone else. This sincerity is what draws Allah's special attention, because He loves the heart that humbles itself in private, far from the eyes of others. The time before dawn, known as Sahar, or the last part of the night, has been honored by the righteous throughout history. The prophets, the companions, and the early generations of believers understood its value and never allowed it to pass unnoticed. They saw it as the hour of divine connection, when prayers rise faster, forgiveness descends abundantly, and mercy flows freely. They knew that dua made at this time has a sweetness that no other worship can replicate, because it is made when the soul is closest to its Lord. The Quran itself praises those who seek forgiveness in the last hours of the night, describing them as the true people of piety. It is a time when Allah's attributes of compassion, forgiveness, and generosity manifest most vividly, and those who seize it are honored with divine closeness. When a believer makes dua before dawn, it is often done in solitude. No audience, no applause, no recognition. This privacy itself intensifies sincerity, for the believer is not performing for anyone but Allah. Their voice trembles, their heart races, and their eyes weep not out of fear alone, but out of love. This is when dua becomes more than just a request. It becomes a confession, a release, a sacred conversation. The believer may begin with words of gratitude, then move to repentance, then to hope. They pour out their struggles, knowing that the one who listens understands every emotion without explanation. Allah's mercy at that moment is overwhelming, and though unseen, it wraps around the believer's heart like a soothing light, bringing calm after chaos. It is no surprise that many who make dua before dawn testify that their hearts feel lighter, their minds clearer, and their burdens eased, even before their situation changes. Sincerity in dua is not about eloquence or formality, it is about presence of heart. When the believer speaks to Allah before dawn, they are not trying to impress, they are trying to connect. They speak to their Lord as a servant speaks to the only one who can save them. Their tone is one of humility and dependence. They no longer rely on their own strength, plans, or people. They rely on Allah alone. That surrender attracts mercy because Allah loves the servant who recognizes their need for Him. When the believer says, Ya Allah, I have no one but you, they are not showing weakness. They are showing ultimate strength, the strength of faith. And when that sincerity flows from the heart, Allah's attention descends upon them in ways they cannot see but will certainly feel. Many scholars explain that dua before dawn is powerful not only because of its timing, but because of the state of the heart at that time. After hours of rest, the heart is less burdened by distractions and more receptive to divine connection. The stillness of the night helps focus the mind, and the humility of the moment breaks down pride. Even a few words spoken sincerely at that time, Ya Allah, forgive me, Ya Allah, guide me, Ya Allah, help me, can carry more weight than long prayers made mechanically during the day. This is because sincerity magnifies impact. It is the heart, not the tongue, that Allah looks at. The dua before dawn becomes a mirror of the believer's soul, reflecting their deepest truth. And when Allah sees that honesty, His mercy responds without hesitation. The mercy that descends during this time is unlike any other. It is gentle yet immense, silent yet transformative. It brings peace to anxious hearts and clarity to confused minds. Sometimes it manifests as answered prayers, sometimes as inner strength, sometimes as a sense of calm that cannot be explained. The believer may rise from their prayer still facing the same worldly challenges, but their heart feels different, stronger, lighter, and more certain that Allah is in control. This is one of the hidden blessings of sincere dua before dawn. Even when the external situation remains unchanged, the internal world of the believer becomes illuminated with tranquility and hope. That inner shift itself is a form of divine response. The early Muslims often said that the sweetness of dua before dawn cannot be described, it must be experienced. They would weep in those hours, not only out of fear of punishment, but out of longing for Allah's closeness. They knew that those who are awake when others sleep are not forgotten by Allah. Every tear shed in that hour becomes a gem in the hereafter. Every whisper, a seed of mercy planted in the soul. When a believer experiences that intimacy once, they crave it again and again because it brings a sense of nearness that nothing else in life can replicate. That is why the truly sincere never trade that time for anything, not for comfort, not for sleep, not for entertainment. Sacrificing sleep for worship invites divine solutions to worldly problems because it demonstrates the believer's willingness to prioritize the eternal over the temporary, the unseen over the seen, and the creator over creation. In a world obsessed with comfort and convenience, rising from a warm bed in the quiet hours of the night is not an ordinary act. It is a declaration of love and faith. It is the moment when a servant says to their Lord, "Ya Allah, I choose you over my rest." That act of sacrifice, made in the stillness when no one is watching, carries a power that cannot be measured by logic. It softens the heart, purifies the soul, and draws divine attention in a way that daytime worship rarely achieves. For Allah loves those who leave comfort for His sake, and He rewards them not only with spiritual peace, but with worldly ease that defies explanation. Sacrificing sleep for worship trains the soul to detach from dependence on worldly ease and to depend instead on Allah's strength. Sleep is a natural human need. It represents comfort, safety, and rest. To give that up, even briefly, for the sake of connecting with the divine shows immense discipline and sincerity. It tells Allah, "My need for you is greater than my need for sleep." Such sincerity attracts divine aid because Allah has promised to take care of those who prioritize Him. When a person struggles to wake up for prayer or tahajjud, even if they fail sometimes, that struggle itself is noticed by the Almighty. The intention to sacrifice sleep is honored, and the moments spent in remembrance become a source of light that guides the believer through daily trials. Allah never leaves the one who wakes for Him alone. He responds with peace in the heart, wisdom in decision-making, and unseen blessings that rearrange life's difficulties into ease. Throughout Islamic history, the most steadfast and successful believers were those who valued the night prayer. They were not necessarily the wealthiest or the most powerful, but they were people whose hearts were firm and whose lives were filled with barakah. They understood that what happens in the night determines what unfolds in the day. When they stood in prayer, they poured out their worries, their fears, and their hopes. They asked for guidance, forgiveness, and strength, and Allah, in His boundless mercy, answered them, not always instantly, but always perfectly. The more they sacrificed sleep, the more solutions appeared effortlessly in their worldly affairs. Their decisions carried clarity, their hearts carried calm, and their lives carried meaning. It was as if the time they lost in sleep was replaced by divine assistance in every other area of life. This sacrifice also purifies the heart from arrogance and pride. In the darkness of the night, when the world sleeps, no one is there to admire or praise. The believer stands alone before Allah, stripped of titles, appearances, and distractions. In that vulnerability, sincerity blossoms. The tongue speaks only truth, the heart humbles itself, and the soul feels its dependence on the Creator. When a person lowers themselves before Allah in the night, Allah elevates them in the day. This is one of the divine laws of spiritual success. Those who humble themselves for Allah are honored by Him among people. Even worldly problems begin to dissolve because the believer's heart no longer reacts with panic but with trust. They begin to see that problems are not punishments, but invitations to draw closer to Allah. And when one views life through that lens, divine solutions come naturally, often through unexpected means. Sacrificing sleep is not easy, but the beauty lies in the struggle. Every time the believer chooses to rise despite exhaustion, their soul gains power over the body. The body demands rest, but the soul seeks light. When the soul wins that battle, it grows stronger, and worldly worries lose their hold. The person who controls their sleep for the sake of worship can also control their desires, their anger, and their impulses. This inner strength translates into better decisions, clearer focus, and more patience, qualities that directly impact worldly success. Thus, the one who sacrifices sleep gains not only spiritual reward, but also practical strength to overcome daily challenges. This is how divine solutions manifest, not always as miracles falling from the sky, but as wisdom, resilience, and clarity planted within the heart. When the believer wakes for worship, the stillness of the night enhances connection with Allah. The heart becomes more aware of His presence, the tongue speaks with more sincerity, and the tears that fall are more genuine. In that silence, the believer feels seen, heard, and loved by the one who never sleeps. It is in those moments that many find answers to problems they have struggled with for years. Some receive peace where they expected solutions. Others receive patience where they sought change, but in every case, they receive what is best for them. Allah's response is always precise and timely. The one who sacrifices sleep learns to trust that timing, knowing that their prayer is not ignored, but delayed until the moment it brings the greatest benefit. This practice also serves as a reminder that everything in life requires sacrifice. Just as success in this world demands effort, success in the hereafter demands devotion. Giving up a small portion of sleep to pray, to seek forgiveness, or to express gratitude is a symbol of commitment to something higher than comfort. It transforms the believer's relationship with Allah from ritual to love, from obligation to longing. And once love drives worship, every sacrifice feels sweet. The believer no longer views waking up early as a burden, but as a privilege, to stand while others sleep, to speak while others are silent, and to be remembered while others are forgotten. That mindset itself becomes a source of divine favor, because Allah rewards hearts that worship out of love rather than fear. The unseen blessings of sacrificing sleep extend far beyond the night itself. It creates ripple effects in the believer's character, relationships, and livelihood. The tranquility gained in those hours carries into the day. Decisions made after such worship are guided by wisdom. Even interactions with others become softer, more compassionate, more patient. This transformation is one of the greatest solutions Allah grants, the inner reform that changes how we experience outer problems. The believer who rises for Allah learns to face life's storms with calm, because they have already tasted peace in His presence. They no longer chase after worldly ease, for they have found true rest in worship. Ultimately, sacrificing sleep for worship is not a loss. It is a trade, a divine exchange. The believer gives up a few moments of rest and gains Allah's attention, mercy, and support. They trade fleeting comfort for lasting peace, short-term fatigue for long-term strength, and temporary loss for eternal gain. It is one of the most powerful demonstrations of faith, showing that a heart attached to Allah will always be provided for, guided, and protected. And though the world may not see the connection between night prayers and worldly success, the believer feels it deeply, because they know that the one who controls the universe is now managing their affairs with mercy and precision. Through this sacrifice, life aligns, problems soften, and unseen doors begin to open, proving again and again that when you rise for Allah, He rises to your aid in every matter of this world and the next. Consistent remembrance at 4:30 a.m. transforms hardship into tranquility, because it is in those sacred silent hours that the heart finds its true connection to Allah, far from the distractions, noise, and chaos of the day. At that time, when the world sleeps and the soul awakens, the believer enters a divine conversation that softens pain and strengthens faith. Each word of dhikr whispered before dawn becomes a light pushing back the darkness of despair, each remembrance a thread weaving calm into the fabric of the heart. The act of remembering Allah consistently at that hour is not just spiritual discipline, it is emotional healing, mental clarity, and spiritual alignment. The burdens that felt heavy in the daylight begin to lighten, the worries that consume the mind begin to fade, and the believer begins to see hardship not as punishment, but as a path toward purification and nearness to Allah. The early morning remembrance carries a unique power because it takes place at a time when Allah's mercy is most near. The Prophet ﷺ taught that in the last part of the night, Allah descends to the lowest heaven, calling out to his servants, "Is there anyone asking so I may give? Is there anyone seeking forgiveness so I may forgive?" These moments are not symbolic. They are real, and they are opportunities for transformation. The believer who sits in dhikr at 4:30 a.m. aligns themselves with that divine invitation. When they utter the names of Allah, their heart begins to synchronize with divine rhythm, their soul begins to breathe differently, and their mind finds peace even amidst chaos. The remembrance acts as a spiritual medicine, cleansing the heart from anxiety, anger, and despair. Slowly, the noise of worldly problems fades into the background, replaced by the calm certainty that Allah hears, sees, and knows every detail of their struggle. Consistency in remembrance builds a sanctuary within the believer. Over time, the early morning dhikr becomes a refuge, a place the heart runs to when life becomes overwhelming. It becomes the secret meeting place between the soul and its creator, where tears flow freely, confessions are whispered, and relief is born. Hardship, when viewed through the lens of remembrance, no longer feels crushing. Instead, it becomes a reminder of dependence on Allah, a motivation to draw closer, a reason to trust. The believer who remembers Allah consistently begins to experience the truth of the verse. Verily, in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest. That rest is not merely emotional comfort. It is a deep spiritual tranquility that anchors the believer in faith, no matter what storms surround them. Even when trials persist, the heart that remembers Allah remains unshaken because it has found its peace not in the absence of problems, but in the presence of the divine. At 4:30 a.m. the world is different. The air feels lighter, the silence feels alive, and the unseen becomes tangible. Every Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, and Allahu Akbar uttered at that hour carries a sweetness that daytime worship rarely matches. The angels bear witness, recording every remembrance, every sigh, every tear. The believer's words ascend, and in return, tranquility descends. It is a divine exchange that words cannot describe. Those who have tasted it know the difference. It is not just about remembering Allah. It is about being remembered by Him in return. That mutual remembrance is what transforms the heart. It replaces fear with courage, sadness with hope, and confusion with clarity. The believer begins to feel guided from within, sensing Allah's presence in every step, every decision, every moment of their day. Consistency in this practice also builds spiritual endurance. Hardship is a test not only of patience, but of remembrance. Many people turn to Allah in times of crisis, but few remain consistent when ease returns. The one who remembers Allah every dawn, however, trains their heart to remain connected regardless of circumstance. They build spiritual muscle, the kind that does not weaken when trials strike. When hardship comes, they do not panic, because remembrance has already taught them calm. They have spent so many mornings speaking to Allah that they know where to turn when life feels unbearable. This consistency transforms their relationship with difficulty itself. They stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What is Allah teaching me?" Through dhikr, hardship loses its sting and becomes a source of elevation. The believer learns that every pain has purpose and every delay hides wisdom. There is also something profoundly cleansing about starting each day with remembrance. It purifies not only the heart, but the perspective. Problems that once seemed huge shrink in significance when viewed after an hour of connection with the Creator. The believer begins to see that solutions are not always external. Sometimes the solution is a peaceful heart that no longer feels broken by circumstance. The dhikr before dawn rewires the inner world. It replaces hopelessness with gratitude, frustration with patience, and fear with trust. Over time, this transformation becomes visible. The person who once panicked under pressure now smiles through trials. The one who used to cry from pain now cries out of love for Allah. Their external problems may not vanish overnight, but their internal state becomes unshakable. At 4:30 a.m., the believer also experiences the beauty of solitude with Allah. It is the kind of solitude that heals loneliness because it connects the heart to the one who never leaves. In those quiet moments, one realizes that no problem is too big for the one who created the heavens, no wound too deep for the one who heals hearts. The remembrance turns into a conversation, sometimes filled with words, sometimes with silence, but always filled with presence. This presence is what transforms hardship into tranquility, because it reminds the believer that they are never truly alone. Even when the world seems distant, Allah is near, listening, responding, guiding. The consistency itself becomes an act of love. To wake every morning at the same sacred hour, to sit in the same place, to whisper the same words, it is an act of devotion that deepens over time. Each morning builds upon the last, creating layers of spiritual strength and emotional stability. The believer begins to crave this time, not out of obligation, but out of longing. And when longing drives remembrance, transformation becomes inevitable. Hardships that once caused sleepless nights now lead to peaceful dawns spent in dhikr. Worries that once dominated thoughts are now replaced with the peace of knowing that Allah's plan is unfolding perfectly. Through consistent remembrance at 4:30 a.m., life itself begins to change rhythm. The believer's energy, focus, and outlook improve. Barakah enters their time, their sustenance, their relationships. They become calmer in speech, more forgiving in conflict, more patient in delay. This transformation is not accidental. It is the natural result of aligning one's mornings with divine remembrance. Hardship no longer defines their story. Faith does. Every obstacle becomes another opportunity to return to Allah, to sit once again in the quiet of the early dawn and remember that peace was never lost. It was simply waiting in remembrance. In this sacred practice, tranquility is not a gift given once. It is a state nurtured daily. The believer who remembers Allah at 4:30 a.m. does not wait for peace. They build it breath by breath, dhikr by dhikr, dawn by dawn. Their life becomes a reflection of that serenity, and even in the midst of chaos, they carry within them a secret calm known only to those who meet their Lord before sunrise. And that is how consistent remembrance transforms hardship, not by changing the world outside, but by changing the world within, until the believer's heart becomes a garden of peace, watered by the tears of dawn.